All right, so today I'm talking about food allergies, intolerances, and food sensitivities. During med school, which was over 15 years ago, in immunology, I only really learned about allergies. So hearing all these different terms today kind of used interchangeably is a little unclear and confusing, and it's probably unclear and confusing to you as well. So my goal today is to break these down in the simplest way I could think of, and kind of the format is that allergy is a diagnosis, intolerance is a mechanism, and sensitivity is a description. So I'll break each down further with more details, and hopefully at the end, everything will be clear and understandable. Welcome to Medicine Made Simple. All right, so let's start with food allergy because this is the really dangerous and important medical one. A true food allergy is a medical diagnosis. It means that the immune system is involved, which is the same system involved in infections, but it's a different part of the immune system. So specifically, IgE antibodies are involved. So these are fast and aggressive. Your body treats the food like a threat. So this is where you see things like hives, lip and tongue swelling, vomiting sometimes, wheezing, trouble breathing. In severe cases, like the 1991 Macaulay Culkin movie My Girl, which I saw as a 7-year-old and definitely made me terrified of bees. So spoiler alert, he's allergic to bees, gets stung, and dies. And that's the main thing in the movie. But back on track, a few key features that make allergies different than everything else. They can happen with very small amounts of food. They happen quickly, either instantly within a few minutes, it could be an hour or so. But these are really predictable reactions. They happen every single time. So because of that risk, food allergies are managed very carefully. You need strict avoidance, allergy specialists, and in some case, you need to carry an EpiPen. So whenever we talk about food allergy, I'm talking about the serious immune-mediated condition, not discomfort or other issues with food. All right, so next we're going to get into food intolerance. Now this is where most people actually live. If a food makes you bloated, gassy, uncomfortable, gives you diarrhea, that's usually not an allergy. These are non-allergic food reactions, so they don't involve IgE. The issue is more mechanical most of the time. So this is still a real issue, but it's not an allergy. So for most people, I think food intolerance comes down to enzymes. So enzymes are tools your body uses to break down. Here we're talking about food. So it's breaking down food into these absorbable pieces. And if you don't have enough of a specific enzyme, that food doesn't get fully digested. So the classic example I'm going to use is lactose intolerance. You've all heard about that one. So lactose is a sugar found in milk and dairy. And to digest it properly, your body needs an enzyme that's conveniently been named lactase. So ASE is usually the ending for enzymes. So if you don't make enough lactase, ASE, the lactose doesn't get absorbed in the small intestine. So instead, that lactose gets moved to the colon where it gets fermented by bacteria. So if you know anything about fermentation, even outside of the body, so fermentation here is going to produce gas and draw in water. So this fermentation in the colon is why people experience this bloating, cramping, and diarrhea. And it also explains some common patterns, like a little dairy might be fine, but if you have that large Oreo milkshake from Amy's Ice Cream, it might not be. And to prove this, there's also stuff you can take when you eat dairy. For example, there's a pill called Lactaid. There's also Lactaid brand milk, which is lactose-free. But so if you take this pill before you have ice cream or something, this supplies the enzyme that you're missing or short on. So the enzyme inside of the pill will break down the dairy that your body can't naturally. So these symptoms don't happen immediately. They show up later once digestion's underway. So these reactions can vary depending on the food, the amount, and the rest of the meal. This is an example, of course, lactose intolerance, but this isn't an allergy. The immune system isn't really involved. It's more of like a digestion problem. So again, it's a real problem, but it's not an allergy, and that's kind of an example of the mechanism of how it works. All right, so for food sensitivity, I'm going to kind of do it a little bit together with intolerance because they're related, but neither is like a precise medical diagnosis like an allergy. So food sensitivity is the term that people use when symptoms are real, the tests for allergy are negative, and the mechanism is unclear. So remember, in the beginning, I said intolerance describes a mechanism we understand. So the difference is really language, not biology. So for intolerance, again, I'll go back to lactose intolerance, the classic example. Remember, not enough lactase. The lactose isn't digested properly. It gets fermented. Symptoms follow. Bloating, cramping, gas, diarrhea, perhaps. So all these things are from lactose intolerance, but we understand the mechanism. You're having lactose in like dairy, and this is happening. So sensitivity describes the symptoms when the mechanism is unclear. I think gluten's kind of a big boogeyman today, so I'm going to use that as an example. Hopefully I don't muddy the waters too much. But when somebody eats gluten and consistently feels bloated or uncomfortable, so there are diagnoses that you can have which would show like a true allergy, like a true wheat allergy or celiac disease. But gluten sensitivity isn't like all in your head. But there's not a single enzyme deficiency we can point to. It just means that the label is vague, not that the symptoms are fake. So to me, the unfortunate part is that vagueness has been heavily exploited into a business rather than anything else, to just kind of explain, hey, like this is a real thing. We're not exactly sure what's happening here, but obviously the treatment is reducing or eliminating what's causing it. All right, so I'm going to try to keep this brief. Quick clarity on antibodies. So IgE is the one that I've been talking about a little bit. There's like 5 different types, GAMDE. But so IgE is the one that's for these food allergies I've talked about. So these fast reactions like hives, swelling, trouble breathing. You might need an EpiPen. That's for IgE. Now, IgG is different. IgG usually just means exposure or even intolerance. So if you find IgG to a food, that usually just means you eat it, like it's part of your diet. So, again, to say IgG doesn't mean intolerance, it doesn't even mean sensitivity, it just means exposure. So when a test says high IgG to eggs, wheat, milk, and rice, the correct translation to take from that is you eat eggs, wheat, milk, and rice. But these tests are pretty interesting. They're a great business model. So it'll give you a long list of foods. And of course, the list includes foods that you eat often, because remember, IgG is just exposure. And you took this test because you already feel bad, like something's giving you a problem. If I give you a list of everything you're eating, or common things that people eat, and you're positive to the things that you eat yourself, it gives you a sense of control. And cutting all the foods that show up positive, it's kind of a shotgun approach. You'll probably hit something that's giving you some sensitivities. And that's, it does make you feel better. Whether the exact mechanism, whatever it is, it's not that important. But so the business model, it's easy to sell direct to consumer. They always have disclaimers like, this isn't medical at all. And then, a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo that's just kind of like, not a health guidance, and everyone takes health guidance from it, of course. But it's really easy because it doesn't require clinical interpretation. It is never negative, right? So it'll show you like a negative panel would be useless, so you won't get one. So it'll always give you something to cut and something to fill in the gaps. So that's, I think, the business model also is, hey, here's some positive results. Here's some supplements you can buy. There's one that I've tried myself called Viome, which is interesting. But anyways, these things don't produce direct harm, but I'm still not a fan because it does increase anxiety around eating more, which we already have enough about. And diets, I think, become nutritionally worse from overcutting, because if I give you all 4 of these things, you might just have a problem with dairy or something, and you've now cut, a bunch of other stuff. But while this works, I think what I would like to recommend, again, I'm not selling anything, but I have a kind of a boring yet effective method, which is a temporary and targeted elimination followed by reintroduction. So you kind of look at what you're eating And so if you're going to start with dairy, for example, like you stop dairy and then see if you feel better, but you don't stop everything all at once. So if you stop dairy, you feel better, you could reintroduce it. And if you start feeling worse, you're like, oh man, like it is dairy. But the way you do it's kind of more like careful history and maybe some symptom timing and even dosing. When I say dose, it's like you can drink a glass of milk safely, but you can't have milk and ice cream, or you can put a splash of creamer in your coffee and you're fine. But if you drink hot chocolate, you have all these symptoms. And even symptom timing, like it's like 30 minutes, 1 hour kind of things. You could see how you feel after some time. So yeah, I think my takeaway from this is really that IgG tests for food don't diagnose intolerance or even sensitivity. They just diagnose what you've recently eaten, and then they sell you like some anxiety and then some supplements. So yeah. So I'll try to keep this brief, keep the takeaway simple. So food allergies are immune emergencies, like eating shrimp or shellfish. When you have an allergy, you'll see your lips swell up, face swells up, can't breathe. You might need an EpiPen, and so that's a food allergy. Food intolerance is a digestion issue, like lactose intolerance, something that we really understand. You don't make enough lactase, so when you have dairy, you will get bloating, gas, diarrhea, etc. And food sensitivities are kind of a label for everything else. It's a lot of uncertainty, but you eat something and we don't know exactly what's happening, but you don't feel good. So that uncertainty is easy to exploit, especially because you have real symptoms. So they'll show you a test of IgG positive for a bunch of stuff, tell you to cut it out, and not only cut it out, but to buy their supplements. So they kind of use those tests to create fear and sell you peace of mind. I believe still the most reliable approach is the boring one, which is simple elimination. Kind of pay attention to the patterns and slowly reintroduce those foods. Remember, you might tolerate one serving of something just fine, but not the second. And the way you're going to find that out, what your body's having issue digesting, isn't by cutting it out completely, but cut it out completely and then slowly reintroduce. Maybe half a serving, something you might feel just fine, and you'll hit where where you're having problems. So, anyways, hopefully that helps, and yeah, I'll see you next time.